This is Jenna Burt, host of the Confessions of a Military Spouse podcast. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
You're listening to Catch Up, an official news production of Public House Media.
Today is July 13th, 2020, and it's time to catch up on the news that you need to know about.
Today, we're helping you catch up on the recent release of President Trump's intention to sell Puerto Rico,
President Trump's first appearance in a mask,
ESPN suspends NBA reporter over a profane email to U.S. Senator.
And, as always, ending with a bit of good news for you today.
We're your hosts, Catherine Smith
and Anna Herman. Welcome to Catch Up.
A statement made in the New York Times announced that President Donald Trump sought interest in selling Puerto Rico amid Hurricane Maria back in 2017 after an interview with the former Homeland Security chief. The idea was considered after Hurricane Maria devastated the island, killing nearly 3,000 people as a result of the storm and flooding.
In the recent interview with New York Times, Elaine Duke, who was serving the DHS's acting secretary when the hurricane hit the island in September 2017, told the Times, quote, "President was looking at it more as a businessman," end quote.
Trump has previously taken aim at Puerto Rican officials due to their management and relief funds from his administration's storm recovery, accusing the island's leaders of spending money for reasons other than hurricane recovery. Later in 2018, White House officials told congressional leaders that President Trump did not want any additional relief funding to be sent to the island.
U.S. President Donald Trump has worn a mask in public for the first time since the start of the coronavirus pandemic. The president was visiting the Walter Reed Military Hospital outside of Washington, where he met wounded soldiers and healthcare workers. Quote, "I've never been against masks, but I do believe they have a time and place," end quote, he said as he left the White House. He has previously said that he would not wear a mask and mocked Democratic rival Joe Biden for doing so. But on Saturday, he said, quote, "I think when you're in a hospital, especially in that particular setting, where you're talking to a lot of soldiers and people that, in some cases, just go off the operating tables, I think it's a great thing to wear a mask," end quote.
He added that he, quote, "sort of liked how he looked with one on," likening himself to the Lone Ranger, a fictional masked hero who was with his Native American friend Tonto, fought outlaws in the American Old West. But when the U.S. Center for Disease Control, CDC, in April began recommending people wear masks or cloth coverings in public to help stop the spread of the virus, President Trump told reporters he would not follow the practice. Quote, "I don't think I'm going to be doing it," end quote, he said back then. Quote, "Wearing a face mask as I greet presidents, prime ministers, dictators, kings, queens, I just don't see it," end quote. Some media reports have suggested aides have repeatedly asked the president to wear one in public.
The United States has seen another 66,528 infections in the past 24 hours, a record for one day, and a total of almost 135,000 deaths since the pandemic began, according to Johns Hopkins University. Louisiana has become the latest state to order that masks be worn in public. ESPN has suspended NBA reporter Adrian Wojnarowski after a profane email was sent to Senator Hawley. Here to discuss the logistical matters of this story is Catch Up News correspondent John Lauder. Thanks for joining us here today, John.
Thanks for having me, guys.
So anyone is allowed to send a letter or email of concern to their representative or any senator for that matter. Why is this one any different?
Well, there's a couple of different layers. The first part is ESPN is very sort of tight-lipped about certain things. They have suspended journalists in the past, Jamel Hill, Dan Le Batard, for making political statements, for saying inappropriate things. They try as much as possible to, at least they claim, to try to stick to sports as much as possible. Many people would argue that's not the case, but that's certainly what they like to try to sort of make the appearance of. And they frown quite heavily on their reporters, going out of sort of that sports bubble and saying things that are inappropriate. Now, the fact that this was an email from Wojnarowski to Hawley does make it a kind of a completely different situation, because technically that's private and then Hawley shared it. So I actually, though I get why they were not happy with what Woj did, it is kind of bizarre to me that a private email was shared and therefore he gets suspended. So that part of it I don't necessarily agree with. I understand that they were not happy with what he did because, I mean, he is an adult and he is a very well-respected NBA reporter with millions of Twitter followers. But the fact that a private email was shared, I think, is a problem here that's not really being talked about as much.
So we've seen reprimands of Wojnarowski's actions as he's been suspended, and there's been rumors that he's been suspended with no pay. What do you think reprimands will continue to see with Wojnarowski, or even actions from the ESPN?
To be honest with you, nothing beyond that. He's so important, especially in NBA coverage. ESPN can't really do anything else to him. If they wanted to fire him, he would be picked up by another network the moment that phone call was ended, because he's that significant in the NBA landscape. And with the NBA season starting literally in weeks, he could not be more important right now. If they suspended him without pay, that's certainly their prerogative and their decision, but there's no way anything else is going to come of this. He's too significant. He's too important. He will be reporting on all the NBA stuff very soon. I'm assuming the suspension's probably 2 weeks. That's typically what ESPN does. And then after that, he will be right back doing what he was before, because at the end of the day, he's too important to what ESPN does. And with all these live sports coming back, particularly basketball, he's too significant of an individual to do anything more than just have a suspension. So I think that'll likely be it. And this story will blow over eventually. And look, I'm interested to see if Woj does anything on his end, because again, a private email was shared, and that's a whole different situation. So that part of it, there may be more to come. But in terms of suspensions or other punishments, I think this will be it.
Well, this definitely will continue an interesting conversation for the future events when it comes to news media, and especially sharing private matters when it comes to emails. So thank you so much for joining us today on Catch Up, John.
Guys, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
And as always, we have a bit of good news for you today. Superpowers like X-ray vision, the strength of a locomotive, or the ability to fly might be uplifting in a Marvel movie, but what better skill could uplift a victim in the real world than bringing smiles to children who are desperately ill? That's how one man in a Spider-Man costume fulfills his mission at children's hospitals all across America, and with his visits to Alaska and Hawaii last September, he has now played that role in all 50 states. It's all part of the fun for Yuri Williams and his Long Beach, California nonprofit, A Future Superhero and Friends, which not only counts hospitals as its turf, but any underserved community.
Yuri has organized blood drives, toy drives, and movie nights, all while donating superhero costumes and Heart of Gold. Quote, "They don't even call me by my real name anymore. It's just Spidey or Spider-Man," end quote. The man behind the mask told Hawaii News Now. Yuri decided to conjure smiles for suffering children as a result of his own healing journey. The idea to be a superhero for those in frightening grips of serious illness came about during his long bout of grief due to his mother's battle with cancer. He decided the best way to deal with his sadness was to service to others, and he's since touched the lives of tens of thousands of people. Thanks for catching up on news today with us. I'm Catherine Smith.
And I'm Anna Herman. Please be sure to catch up with us again tomorrow.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts.
We appreciate you listening to Catch Up. For even more content, follow Catch Up Digital on social media. Just search for @TimeForCatchup.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on any of the stories that we covered today. Just use the hashtag #PassTheCatchup on social media.
Catch Up is an official production of Public House Media.